Oh, hey there. So, today, what we're going to be talking about, some of it comes from this very book written by Chris Voss. So, let me know if you've ever heard of Never Split the Difference, negotiating as if your life depended on it. And I think for us as parents, it's our kids' education depends on it, right? So, um, I was going to say, I'm Charmaine Tanner, if you're new to the show. And what I love to do is learn things and then, like, how can I apply that to advocacy? So this one is a little bit more clear on that path, right? However, the difference is using something that an ex FBI hostage negotiator has learned over the years. And now Chris Voss has transferred that to mainly business situations and making contracts and deals with businesses. However, there is so much packed in his book and his videos that can help us as parent advocates. So I'm going to show you this real short clip and cross your fingers that all works. Okay.
Are successful because of logic or arguments or reason or compromise. You're leaving millions of dollars on the table. Negotiation is really about people making decisions based on what they care about, what your passions. Every decision you make based on what you care about, which I'm afraid that by definition, that makes decision making an emotional process. Tactically, emotional, intelligent negotiation is the way you make great deals and the way you have great long-term relationships. If you think that successful negotiations are successful because of logic or arguments or reason or compromise, you're leaving millions of dollars on the table. Negotiation is really.
So I just feel like, yes, that these are things that we can help each other remind ourselves. I think so many times we're data driven, quantitative data driven, which I can be totally. And it's like, I also see this as like, well, this is really logical. This needs to happen in order for this. And however, what Chris Voss and others help us learn is that we do have to start with those emotions, and we do have to tap into that before we start presenting all this data and logic. So the other combination that we have going today is Don Draper from the Mad Men. How many of you are Mad Men Netflix, like, what is it called, where we just watch it over and over again? So Don Draper was this iconic ad executive back in the 50s. And I look at marketing and it's like, you know what? As advocates, we really are in the marketing business because and it sounds kind of weird, but I really believe it. It's like we need to market our kids. We need to show the strengths, and not only the strengths, but we need to show how their vulnerabilities adds to classrooms and schools and communities. So we're always, I think, trying to help other people understand what our mission is, and we can learn tips from marketers. So because I'm a prepared person, I even have a real quick clip from the Mad Men. So let's look at this one. Go. Start this.
Advertising is based on one thing. It's a billboard on the side of the road that screams with reassurance that whatever you're doing, It's okay. You are okay. Well, gentlemen, I don't think I have to tell you what you just witnessed here.
So, what we just witnessed is, again, tapping into those emotions that people are having when we're having conversations with them. So, what we're going to do today is different. We're going to use the Wheel of Names, except now we're going to call it the Wheel of Slogans. So let me see. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin the wheel. Let me bring this up. Get the wheel. These are the different slogans that I put in there. And I think there's a way to do the whole picture, but this is good enough. So what I'm going to do is spin the wheel, and whatever marketing slogan lands on, we're going to talk about how we can relate that to advocacy work. So here we go. Let's see where we land. So this one is, you're in good hands. So how can that slogan help us as advocates? You're in, here I am. You're in good hands. How could we transfer that to advocacy? So if you're here with us live or you're watching on the replay, let us know. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this slogan from an advocacy point of view. And also, we're going to look at it like, what would Chris Voss say about this? So, you are in good hands. And I think from an advocacy point of view, it's like, as parents, we want to feel that our child's team has their back, right? And that we can have this trusting relationship and we can feel like we are in good hands. So a Chris Voss question that applies to this, and I'm looking over here at my handout. So if you want a handout about this, let me know. Just say handout in the comments. But Chris Voss says, what would help this feel like a team effort, not just compliance on paper? Now, of course, besides asking questions like this, we always have to be cognizant of the tone that we ask it in and our body language, right? To have that aligned. But what would help this feel like a team effort and not just compliance on paper? And then you stop and you wait for someone else to respond. And sometimes that pregnant pause goes on for a while, but you don't want to be asking questions and then either answering them yourself or going on to the next question. So give people time to respond. So you're in good hands. How would Don Draper frame this as a marketer? And he would say, trust is built through reassurance, not authority. So again, we're talking about how we connect the emotions, how we label the emotions, how we mirror the emotions. All of these kinds of techniques can really make a difference when you're sitting at the IEP table. So we're going to do another slogan here. Let me see. Full screen. I'm going to spin. Spin, spin, spin. The pause that refreshes. First, maybe you want to guess. Do you know what product that goes with? The pause that reflects or refreshes is from Coca-Cola. So the pause that refreshes, how could we use that in our advocacy? Hey, Anne-Marie, I see you're here with us. So what do you think? The pause that refreshes, how can we use that? And that sometimes can be that pause where after you've asked a question, but it also could be used in other ways. So let's look at what needs to be. And I guess one of the other examples I wanted to share with you was also that I think so many times when we look at behavior, we look at there's always got to be this immediate consequence. And sometimes we also want to look at when is it appropriate to pause and not react so quickly to what we think is negative behavior from kids. So yes, these kinds of techniques help you as an advocate, but also we're hoping to share them with the staff so they also can pick up on these. So the pause that reflects or refreshes. So Chris Voss might say, can we talk about what's underneath the behavior, not just the reaction to it? So yes, yes, yes. And I was just having this discussion in our Copa Seat class yesterday about FBAs and how they'll say, oh, he's avoiding work, and it's like, yeah, but what's the behavior underneath that? And so that is a simple question that you can use in your meetings. And Don Draper, as a marketer, he might say, offer the pause they didn't know they needed. So again, that could be in a behavior example. It might just be in a discussion. When things get kind of heated, taking that pause, taking some deep breaths, right? That can help you be more centered and grounded in your advocacy. So you're ready for another slogan. And let's go back to the wheel of marketing slogans. There we go, round and round. And I love it. Have it your way. Who knows that? I can't sing that commercial, but it's for Burger King. So, and the thing that's neat for me with this connection is our oldest grandson goes to a high school called Bishop Kelly, and they go by BK. So when it's like, BK, have it your way, it reminds me of my grandson. However, if we're looking at what Chris Voss would use with this marketing slogan, let me go look on our handy dandy handout. Have it your way. I mean, wouldn't you love to walk into an IEP meeting and they have this banner that says, have it your way? I don't know. So this is a Chris Voss statement or Chris Voss question. It sounds like we're trying to fit my child into a plan. What would it look like to build a plan around them? So these are possibilities. These are seeds that you're planting. And again, after you ask that question, you want to pause and you want to see the discussion start to happen, right? So if you were Don Draper and a marketing person, have it your way, what would Don Draper say? He says, great advocacy stands out, not fits in. Make it personal. And that again is what so many marketers look at, right? How do we tap into the people that we're trying to influence and persuade? How can we tap into that? Sarah, oh, sorry, Sarah. She said she was stuck on the event page. handout. Excuse me, Sarah. Yes, 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 yes. I'm putting some finishing touches on it. I wanted to add some more about tactical empathy and some other marketing things. But yeah, you will get this handout and I can show it to you. So yeah, as soon as I get the finishing touches. So I've taken all of the famous taglines and looked at how we can use them in advocacy. But there's other information here in the handout also. So yes, I will send that to you. And I know Sarah was saying that she just kind of found out about Chris Voss. And I think, Sarah, did you say that you're starting to read his book, Never Split the Difference? And it's like, I'm going to reread this so many times. And just, yeah, I mean, you can pick it up and you can look inside and find some good stuff right there. So this could be a pre-IEP thing that you read. But the other thing is, and I should look for that too, because I made a handout just about Chris Voss's thing. So I could show you that too. So yes, so we're getting to another wheel of names here, Sarah. We're going to look and spin the wheel again. Okie dokie, let's see where it lands. Ah, here's the Energizer. It just keeps going and going and going. And let me know how you could apply this to your advocacy, because I get these ideas, but there's like a million other ways that this can work too. So when I first thought about the Energizer slogan or tagline, it keeps going and going and going, is me. It's like I keep working and working and working. And I bet you feel that way as a parent too, right? But it's only we can only do that for so long, right? And those are some things that I'm realizing about myself, even at this old, ripe age. That, yeah, going sometimes isn't the best strategy. And we need to realize that as ourselves, for ourselves, but also in our kids' situation too, right? So let's look at what it says here. It keeps going and going. So one, if we want to reframe that, we can say advocacy should not be a test of endurance. It's like, yeah, I mean, there's got to be more to life than arguing and having disagreements at IEP tables, right? So what would Chris Voss say? He might say, or a question, because Chris Voss loves questions. It seems like everyone's tired. What would it take to share the weight here? Now, of course, you're going to tweak the words to fit to the words that you would use. But when you see the team is so bogged down, and especially at the end of the year, right, there's so many things that staff is having to do. And so when you feel that heavy weight in the room, recognize it, right? We're not trying to, sweep it under the rug, but then to say, like, what would it take for us to share the weight? And that could be, what would it take for these modifications to get made? And the para is not the only person responsible. So we can share that weight of making modifications. So that's something that you can look at. Now, what would Don Draper say about it keeps going and going? I love this quote is you win with clarity and calm, not exhaustion. And just as a parent, your life can be so exhausted, right? And you add on that the responsibilities and what you have to do to keep up with all the special ed paperwork. And that's where, and I am learning this too, is to take a break, to take some deep breaths, to lay down on your bed for 5 minutes before you go to the IEP meeting and get yourself grounded. So yeah, we don't have to keep going and going and going and going without a break. We all need breaks now and then. So give yourself some grace, right? So you ready for another wheel? Let me go over here to the wheel of names. I thought this would be much more fun than a PowerPoint. Okay, let's spin it again. We're down to a few here. We might not cover them all today. Aha, my favorite. Think different. So, do you know the product that this tagline is for? Think different. Any guesses? It's from Apple, and I am a Apple person, right? But think different. I mean, that's like a perfect tagline that we could use for our IEP meetings, don't you think? Because that's what we're challenging people to do, is to challenge these outdated beliefs that they have, that, we look at that foundation of ableism, and that we have to start thinking differently, and so do the staff at the school, right? So think different. I mean, that would be like a neat banner to see at the beginning of a school building. It's like, we think different here. I don't know. In my school district in Idaho, they probably wouldn't let us have that. So let's look at think different. And another thing I think a lot of us do, and that's important, is to help the staff understand that, yes, your child has needs. Yes, your child has challenges, but let's look at things. Let's think differently here. And let's look at my child through that strength-based lens. Let's use that strength-based lens when we're writing IEPs, because we are thinking differently, right? So what might a question be from Chris Voss about this? He might say, what strengths might be hidden by what's hard right now? Who? So, what strengths might be hidden by what's hard right now? So, that, I mean, I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a collector of questions. So, when I look at Chris Voss's questions, they always get those wheels turning for me. So, does that happen to you? And then from a marketing lens, what would Don Draper say about think different? Well, he probably wish he would have come up with that tagline, right? But Don Draper might say we have to challenge the assumptions, offer a better story. So I just love the simplicity of that. But excuse me, the connection that would also make in a meeting. So, maybe we say, I hope at today's meeting, we are challenging assumptions that no longer serve my child. So the other thing I suggest too is, when you have your documents that you're going to take to the IEP meeting, is think ahead of time. What are some of the questions that I could ask? And actually, handwrite them or type them on the computer or whatever. But so when you get to that section of the IEP, you already have these wonderful calibrated questions that you can ask. And you don't have to remember, like, shit, what did Charmaine say? That was a good question. So that's my tip. So I think we'll do another wheel of names. So let me get that up here. So which one of these slogans has resonated with you the most? I love Think Different. Okay, we've got a few down here. Let's see where we land. So this one is, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So have you ever been in an IEP meeting, and it might be because you're on Zoom, right? But it's like, can you hear me? However, it's also like, how many times do I have to say this in order for the staff to really listen and for me to really feel like I've been heard? Because you can present your information, and we learned today we want to start with emotions, not logic and data. However, it's like, what else? What else could happen here that would make it like a more positive, interactive relationship build? So let's go over here, and we're going to look at. Can you hear me now? And so this is a question that Chris Voss might ask at an IEP meeting. He might say, it seems I haven't said it in a way that landed. Can we pause for a second? And one of the things, as you learn more about Chris Voss, and as I learn more about Chris Voss and his techniques, is to slow things down, especially when you see people getting heated, the emotions starting to rise. So a really good question is, can we pause for a second? And just kind of have everybody take a deep breath, right? So if you're Don Draper, a marketer, and you have the tagline, can you hear me now? Don Draper might say, if they're not listening, hit the emotion, not the volume. And that's pretty cool, because I know, especially as an advocate, when I was just starting out, sometimes you just get so frustrated. It's like your voice, you become louder. It's like what we do with our kids, right? If they don't listen, then if we say it louder, maybe they'll listen better. No, it doesn't usually happen, right? So instead of turning up the volume on your voice and getting louder, what Don Draper says is tap into that emotion that other person is feeling. And that's how we can switch the conversation there. So Anne Marie, oh, shoot. Well, Anne Marie, you have to join us again in Connecting for Change, because in our Connecting for Change community, we've had several videos and workshops. But yeah, Anne Marie says, I needed these tips last week. Oh, we had to pause the meeting. So then that's good, Anne Marie, because now you can have some more questions that you can use when you take up the meeting again. Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? I mean, it's perfectly fine if you need to not just pause for, a minute or so, but you need to pause and reschedule the meeting. That can happen too, right? So let's go back to, the Wheel of Names. Ah, you're worth it. Yes. Anybody know the product for this tagline? It's L'Oreal, the makeup. However, I was trying to pick taglines that would go with our advocacy, right? Because you're worth it. Your child is worth the extra time, the extra effort, whatever it needs to take for your child to be successful. And it's not because they earned it, it's because they are. And that's another lesson I've been learning about myself is I equate the work that I do with my worthiness. And I don't want my grandkids, I don't want my children, I don't want students to feel like they have to earn their way to belong, that their worthiness depends on how well they can keep up, how well they can talk, how well they can walk. It's like, no, our kids are worth it because they are there. So if you look at Chris Voss, what might be a question that Chris Voss would ask? So Chris Voss might say, it sounds like we're stretched thin. How can we show that time spent on my child is a wise investment? And then you're quiet. And people get taken back by those kinds of questions because those are not the kinds of questions that they usually hear at an IEP, right? So yeah, I'm just fascinated by other ways that we can say things at meetings. So Don Draper from Mad Men, what might he say? He would say sell value, not time. Help them feel your child's worth. So again, we come back to using emotion and connecting on an emotional level before we start, kind of plummeting them with all kinds of requests and demands, right? So that's one of the tips. So hey there. Let me show your comment. Sorry, I joined late. Is this being recorded? Yes, it is. And if so, where will it be available? Thank you so much for all you do, Charmaine. Well, thank you for being here. Yeah, as soon as we end the live video, it will be up for replay on my Art of Advocacy page. And also, I had mentioned earlier, I have a handout. I've been referring to it here. I'm going to add some more to it. I think I wanted to add some more explanation of what tactical empathy is from Chris Voss's viewpoint. So, but just put handout in the comments, and then we'll see either today or tomorrow. The handout will be ready, and then I can give you the link for it. Okie dokie. So here we go. Let's do a wheel of names instead of PowerPoint. I like it. Okay. Where are we? I think we'll do one more. Let's see where it lands. Ooh, ultimate driving experience. Do you know what product that is for, the ultimate driving experience. Not that I have one of these in my garage. It's BMW. So the ultimate driving experience. So how we relate this to advocacy is that IEP should drive growth. And the other thing I want to say is that the IEP is not your whole child's education. The general education curriculum is your child's whole program. IEPs are there to support so they can access and learn from that general ed curriculum and make progress. So it's not that the IEP is everything. It is that accountability, and it's an important contract that we have with the district. But yeah, there's other things too that are driving your child's education. So what question might Chris Voss ask in this situation? He might say, what would progress look like? And how would we know it's happening? Now, this is gold. It's like, yes. I mean, you could write this on every goal. So every time you're talking about a goal at the IEP meeting, you could ask, for this reading, decoding goal, like, what would progress look like? And how will we know when it's happening? And so, yes, we're taking data. Yes, we're monitoring progress. But like in the big scheme of things, when my child becomes a better reader, what's that going to look like? How is that going to make him feel as a reader? How does that make teachers feel when they have been able to help a student learn how to read? So again, tapping into those emotions, but also pulling it back to what the issue is at the IEP table. Now, Don Draper would say, paint the outcome, sell success. So yeah, that's the picture that we want to paint, is like, what is this outcome for my child now that he's making so much progress with his reading? How is that going to impact his life? And I think we need to ask those kinds of questions at IEP meetings, because this IEP should be taking your child one step forward to that future that they want for themselves, the future that you want for your child. So yeah, we need to paint that outcome. We need to vividly describe it. And then that helps everyone at the table get a real good understanding of where we need to be coming from. So I hope you enjoyed this. I love learning from people like Chris Voss, even though you might think, what can we learn from an ex-FBI hostage negotiator? And not that our IEP meetings are, not that we're held hostage. Maybe we sometimes feel that way. But again, it's another way of looking at how we can approach advocacy. And when we use some unique questions that the team isn't used to hearing, and it like makes them go like, oh, huh, I never, yeah, huh. That's what we want, because we want that trust. We want that connection. And so starting with emotions and not leading with logic and data is one way that we can do that. So I'm so glad that you joined us today, or if you're watching the replay, because twice a month we do a Facebook Live on a variety of topics. Sometimes we have a guest, like last time we had Dr. Paula Kluth. Sometimes it's just a favorite subject that I think will help you the most. So I encourage you to follow the Art of Advocacy page if you don't already. And like I said, I'm going to be tweaking this handout so I can give you the link to it either today or tomorrow. So take care. Make sure that you are pacing yourself, giving yourself grace to take breaks when you need to. And know that I'm here to help support you, because the big mission that I feel in my life is that I want your child to be safe, happy, and learning every day beside their peers. So until next time, take care, and we shall see you then.